Stephanie Dobson is back with us again. Stephanie is a lawyer, mediator, and online educator with Henke Divorce Law and Mediation offices in Edmonton and Lloydminster. Stephanie, thanks again for joining me.
Nice to see you as always, Stacey.
Well, people are starting to plan vacations. It's that time of year. And if you're going through a divorce or a separation, sometimes it can be interesting when you're traveling with your kids. So today we're going to be talking about that exact fact, the fact that when you're traveling somewhere, you should at least have some ideas as to what you might deal with at the border. So the first question should be, if you are traveling with children, Stephanie, what should you be considering before taking them anywhere?
So I have to say, just to get started, this topic was maybe a little bit selfish of me because I'm heading away on vacation myself, and so I thought of this one as a good topic to do right now as we get into the holiday season. Although we focus in our interviews on people who are separating and divorcing, this topic really relates to travel with children that are under the age of 18, traveling with one parent or guardian, or traveling unaccompanied. So it really doesn't have anything to do with separation or divorce necessarily. We need to focus on two things. The first one is what kind of travel is allowed according to your written documentation. So your parenting plan, that might be an agreement or that might be a court order. And then what documentation is required for that travel. So let's first start by talking about that documentation. So some of the things that you might want to consider when you're building your documentation, so you're building the terms of the separation agreement or the court order, is, are parents free to travel with their children during their parenting time, or are there restrictions on travel distances or even travel location? And where notice is required for that travel, what does that notice look like? So is that notice that's required? Is that consent that's required? And how much detail and how far ahead would that notice be required? So every family that I work with has different views on that. And so it's really important that when I talk with parents about travel, that I listen to what their thoughts are on the travel. Then the next thing is that documentation. So there's technically no legal requirement for a guardian or parent to carry that consent to travel form with their children when they're traveling outside of Canada. But then this is the big but, Customs and Immigration is going to want to see that consent has been provided by the non-accompanied guardian or parent. So it is best to have a form of a travel consent with you to ensure that there's smooth travel. So that's only for international travel. Within Canada, of course, there's no provincial border patrol that's going to monitor your travel.
Let's go into that a little bit deeper, Stephanie. If you are leaving the country, you should have something called a consent to travel form. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that consent to travel form, there's not a specific form that's required by the customs agent. The point of that consent to travel form is for the Customs and Immigration officials to have enough information to be reassured that that parent or guardian that's not accompanying the children has actually consented to that travel. So the more information that the traveling parent can provide about the children, about the travel itinerary, and about that non-accompanied parent or guardian, the better. So there's no legal requirement for the form to be notarized, but I definitely recommend the notarization of these forms in order to make sure that that the Customs and Immigration officials see that there's a sense of formality to that form.
And when should you look at getting this form signed? How far in advance of your actual vacation?
So if you think that there's going to be an issue with getting the form signed in the first place, then I highly recommend that you get that form filled out and signed before even you complete that travel booking. But it's not actually needed until you get to the Customs and Immigration officials. Getting the form is so simple and quick. Why not get it done before you have any issues with the other parent? And of course, before you get to 3 days before your travel. So the first step is get the form completed. The second one is to get the non-traveling parent to go to a law office to have the form notarized, and then finally the originals will be ready for pickup by the traveling parent. So it's so easy. Why not get it done early?
Now, what happens if the one parent doesn't consent to the other one taking the children out of the country or wherever it may be for travel?
So in that case, there's really only two options. So the first one is you come to an agreement on the travel. And the second one, if you can't get to agreement, which is the nature of your question, is you have to get into court to have a judge decide on whether the court will allow that travel without the other parent's consent. And of course, if the traveling parent waits too long and the trip is too close, sometimes there may not be time to get into court. So that's why I say, again, going back to the previous question, it's really important to get in early and to make sure that there's not going to be any problems getting that travel consent.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again, Stephanie, and we will be back to chat again next week.
Sounds good, Stacey.